Hello, welcome to Office Hours session number 106. The purpose of the office hours is really simple. It's to help you with the content at Watch and Code. So if you're going through a lesson, either in practical JavaScript or in premium, and you're stuck, you can go ahead and ask me directly and get help and hopefully get unstuck. So just a couple of the usual announcements before we start. Um, the first is you'll want to join the Facebook group to hear about upcoming sessions and get other updates. The link is linked right here. This document is linked in the uh, video description right below the YouTube live stream. And then here you'll also find that call-in link. So if you do have a question, you'll want to call in. I don't have any updates from my side this week, so we'll just go into questions. Um, it looks like a light group. So a couple people called in already, and then they they said they didn't have questions and just wanted to hang out, which is okay too. So, but if you're watching right now and you do have a question, please do call into the Hangout so you can ask the question. Otherwise, we'll just have like a short session, or it could be a discussion, whatever you all. Maybe it'll just be a one-on-one conversation with me and how do you say your name? Ali? Ali, can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. It's
How do you,
Alif.
wait, say it one more time.
Alif.
Aleph.
You say Ali, right? You say Ali
Uh-huh.
and Alif. Alif.
Aleph. Okay. Well, if nobody calls in, it'll just be a one-on-one conversation. And
Okay.
that's okay too. Um, so yeah, so the 7 people that are watching right now, um, please call in if you have a question. So I guess, Aleph, do you have any I guess I'm curious, like what are you what's your status right now with the material? Like, are you in practical JavaScript? Where are you at with the material right now?
Yeah, I'm in version 10. Click to delete. I'm about to start that section.
Which section?
Version 10. Click to delete.
Oh, section 10. Got it. Got it. And how are things going so far?
So far pretty good. Some of them are pretty advanced, I think. Into now these things. But it's pretty fun though.
Mhm.
I'm
Got it.
thinking about the premium course that you're offering. You cannot hear me, right?
I can hear you. It's okay. It's really soft.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I can hear you. Hmm.
It's nice to meet you. It's very sunny over there, right?
Yeah, it's in California. Cool. Well, do you have any like general thoughts on the material so far, or just like random questions for me? Anything like you're wondering about?
I thought it would be really nice if you could have much more exercises actually
Hmm.
to practice on, and if you could add that. Uh, the way you teach is very nice. It would be nicer if we could have much more exercises. Yeah, and
Mm,
maybe I'll let you know more when I finish the course.
got it. Okay, cool. So more exercises.
Yeah, more exercises and some fun exercises maybe. I don't know, small fun exercises.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's definitely on the in my plans to do that. So thanks for the suggestion and the reminder, and
My
I'll
pleasure.
uh I'll get on that. Cool. Any other thoughts, Salif, before I switch to the next student?
Mm-hmm. Any forum? I don't know. something for students that they can communicate? I am not that far ahead, I think. Um, it would be really nice to a community thing that you, yeah, you have that on Facebook, I guess.
Wait, sorry, one second.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
You have a community thing on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Other than that, what other thing you have?
Yeah,
Where
so for once you're in the more advanced material in premium, there's a Slack group as well.
then you have that already.
Yeah. So yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll definitely think about how to make the community like more active and stuff because I know the Facebook community is it's okay. It's not that great.
thing
The,
is, I'm trying to get away from Facebook, so I'm not in Facebook and I'm not that active. So I was thinking maybe like the glitch thing that you have, maybe something like that. I don't
the
know.
what thing?
Glitch.
Glitch.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's a little bit different, but
Yeah. Maybe I don't have that much idea yet. So okay, the context is different. I guess.
okay, cool. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Aleph. I appreciate the feedback. And I'll definitely take that into consideration. If you have any questions during the session, just let me know and I can come back to you.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Um, let's move to Joseph.
Hey,
Oh,
Gordon.
whoa!
What?
Your mic volume is really loud.
Really?
Well, at least in comparison. Did you have a question, Joe?
No, I don't have any questions. But
Okay.
yeah, the material has served me well and is serving me well and continues to do so. So
Okay, cool. Well, I hope you'll stick around for the open discussion later
okay.
after. Because I don't think Jason has a question either, but we'll see. Jason, are you there?
I am. You hear me?
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, we have the typical problem of not enough questions.
Oh. Yeah,
So,
that's not good. I wish I had one for you. I don't though. Trying to come up with one.
it's okay. Well, what's on your mind,
Mm,
Jason?
other than like stuff that will bore everyone, like work meetings, like 9 o'clock stand up meetings. Like I don't want to bore you all with anything that'll come up in my brain right now.
Well, how's your programming going?
Oh, it's going great. It's going great. Yeah, I haven't been around here too much, but the whole everything you've taught me using in the corporate world, and it gets me places. So I'm straight in love with everything, like I've always been, and learning what I've learned here and taking it into the real world and using it in the real world. So I hope your students are getting there and get a job, whether it's entry level. You gotta start somewhere.
Mhm.
But it's cool. I actually now come here to see what it used to be like to not know anything, and like I like hearing trivial questions of a beginner, and it reminds me where I've been and where I'm at. But there's always room for improvement,
Yeah.
and just not just knowing a syntax or anything, just knowing how to get better at programming and develop.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
I think
Cool.
once a lot of people get in the door, like I think they'll respect what you're teaching them more. If that makes sense. Like once you get in the door, you're like, you have a lot to learn, especially if you got a engineer or a architect looking over you, and you're like, you want to ask questions, right? You don't want to waste time. All that good stuff that you teach. It's that is like I'm part of a lot of programming groups online, whether it's PHP people saying, should I, study Laravel or, CodeIgniter in the PHP world, JavaScript, it's a crazy language. Some people were like, don't start with JavaScript. It's crazy. But ends up being just the developer mindset. You can pick up anything if you have the right tools and the right framework in your brain, I think. If that makes sense.
Yes, for sure. Jason, are you gonna stick around for the off the air chat afterwards?
Yeah, I love to shoot the shit with sorry for cussing.
It's okay.
But with you and Joseph and anybody who wants to stick around, I'm very off the cuff. I'm a goofball. I have a lot of goofy things I can tell you about the corporate industry or just getting a job. But Gordon's already taught you everything I know. But it'd be fun to shoot the shit. So I'm gonna be quiet.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to it. All right, so we'll go to Miriam. Miriam, what have you been up to?
Hey, I hope it doesn't echo. My headphone input isn't working right now. But today I actually printed out the code for that the third video of the premium content. Actually, I printed out all the code, and then I just focused on the 3 methods: edit, key up, and update. And I just stepped away from the computer and tried to write on the paper what was happening, and then I went back and watched the video and found errors in my assumptions, which was really helpful. So I thought that was a really helpful exercise today.
Cool, awesome. Were there any like weird things that you saw or things that you want to get more clarity on, or anything I can help with, basically?
Let me remind myself here. Well, I had one little question, and I haven't had time to dig myself. So it's possible it's not that complicated, but there's the find dot find property, and that selects the edit class. And I know that there are 2 elements. One is shown and one isn't. And then is it true that I'm trying to figure out the exact piece of code responsible for switching it out? I know that they're switched out. I just
Can you share your screen and show us the the switching, and then open up the code and show us that relevant part?
Let's see. I'll just share the screen. There we go. So this is the method responsible for going into the edit mode. And I know that this is the event that is passed through when you click on jQuery object here, the to-do list, and you have to double click. So that's how that is triggered. And so that event is passed through. And then the closest to LI, the ancestor is found. So you go up the DOM tree. Then the editing class is added to that LI, and then you find the nearest edit class. And so I can show you where it's hidden here. It's, I think, yeah, here it is. So you see there's one label here that is shown, and then there's another label here with the same text, but the display is none.
Mhm.
And so basically, my understanding is when you trigger this edit function or method, then this is shown at that point. And so now we have a new, it has a new look to it. And I'm just trying to figure out what exactly is causing that to switch. And I think it's, obviously this is important for locating the element to switch out, but I'm trying to figure out which part is actually responsible for switching it. And I think it's this. But then I'm not finding this edit class, so I'm a little confused about that.
Mhm. Well, so go back to the app and can you double click one of them? So there's a class editing that was added, right?
Mhm.
And can you expand that? And then there's the edit class. Down.
Oh, here we go.
Right
I
there.
see.
So
then it finds that, and then. Okay.
So yeah, so it finds that and it focuses in that element. So if you click that element in the can you click that? So this says class edit. So go back to the code. So it finds edit and then it focuses on that. Okay, and go back to the app. So there's the class edit. And wait, can you double click it? Double click one of them again?
Yeah.
So now it's display block. See to-do list, li, right? See.
I see. Okay. I wasn't looking over here. I was looking for, I saw this class edit, but I was looking in the CSS for the styling that corresponded with that, other than none.
Yeah, so there's a wait, so where's the hidden one? Which one is display none? Can you click on the input in the elements tab? Oh, yeah, it changes the app. Yeah, that's annoying. I really actually forgot how this works. So editing, hold on. So go back to the code. Sorry to, oh yeah, okay. So the editing class is added to the closest li. So go back to the app. So the editing class is added to, so click one of the LIs. So I guess that is, so am I right? The one that has li data ID, is that the thing that gets editing? Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, so editing is added to, yeah, right there. So once that happens, go back to the code, sorry. So once you add the class, then you find edit, you find the class, or you find the element that has the edit class. So you want double click again?
Here. So it's
Yes.
this one that's normally hidden, right?
Right, and then you focus on it. Yeah, so I want to see if the thing with the edit class. So my guess is that the editing CSS, like when editing, when that has the class that's editing, then the inputs below will be display block. Otherwise, it's display none. I think it's some CSS stuff. So the way to
you repeat that.
Yeah. So I think there's, and we can confirm this, but my hypothesis is that elements that have the editing class, so that this li that contains all this stuff, there's a rule for inputs within that are nested underneath the class with the editing, or sorry, inputs that are nested underneath an element with the editing class will have will display block rather than display none. But so normally an input inside of the li will be display none, but then when you add the editing class to the li, then it'll be display block.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So
And
that
so
information would be in the CSS.
it
and
should be in
not-
the CSS, yeah.
Okay.
So we can take a look at it. Do you want to open up the CSS?
That would be good. So should I go to one of these? I'm guessing.
Apps, yes. Let's take a look at all of them. So start with app CSS. Okay, not that one. Okay, go to base CSS. Search for editing. Just Command F editing. I can't see the.
Yeah, I'm trying to refresh.
So I don't think it's there. So check index CSS. I think it must be here. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here, this is where we're so we're looking for in the first part. So we have 3 rules for things with the editing class. The first one is just kind of padding and border stuff. That's not that interesting, but yeah, 166 is interesting. So when you have li, honestly, I don't remember exactly how CSS works, but it looks like when you have an li that has editing, and then you have an element within it that has an edit class, then apply these rules. So that will happen only when you run the edit function, because the edit function adds this toggle, adds the editing class.
Oh,
right?
that makes sense.
So these rules don't factor in normally, but when you hit edit, then for momentarily, you have the editing class and you have these rules that apply. So what these rules do is it displays block, right? Whereas typically, I guess in 173, when you have li editing, or like, so typically it's display none. So to confirm this, go to the app again, and yeah, so typically, so we're not triggering edit right now, the edit thing, and so you should see display none, right? So to do, go back to the app. You see on the right side, you see to do li edit display none, and it says it's from 2. So click in the right side where it says index.css 241. Can you click that? Yeah, so I guess that's the part that makes it normally
And
display.
so then
none.
when you add the editing, that's when it seems like adding the editing and
We'll
having
display
edit.
block instead.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah. Okay. So the focus is really specific in this app, or in general. Is my understanding. Focus is really about the cursor. It's not about the CSS so much.
no, yeah. Focus is
Yes,
literally the cursor is inside of the input.
And so the change in the way it looks, the appearance is triggered by this. And I was wondering, that actually answered 2 of my questions, because I didn't really understand what this was doing. I didn't find the connection there, but now it makes a lot more sense. So.
Yeah, it literally just adds the class. And then once that class is there, then all the CSS rules get applied. And the rules that are applied when there's an editing class versus without the editing class are what is responsible for the visual difference and the hiding and unhiding. And then when you find edit, it will you basically get the input, and so that's where you want to focus. So that's why we want to find the edit, the element with the edit class, because that's going to be the input which we want to focus on.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I guess I don't remember how I explained it in the videos. I think I kind of glossed over the CSS because it's not super important how it's happening, like how the visual stuff is happening, but I think it's really important to know that the class is being added, and then that's what's responsible for the visual changes. And then once the class is added, it's important to understand that when you do find, and then with the string dot edit, you're gonna get the element that has the edit class, which is going to be the input. And then once you have the input, you focus on it. So that's probably that was probably the focus of the video. And so if you watch that, it really goes through the JavaScript, but yeah, it didn't really. It can be It must have felt underwhelming if you were wondering how the CSS worked in more detail.
Well, it was informative. I was trying to go through the code on my own, and so those questions came up.
Yeah, and the other thing that it might be, if you are interested, you could quickly tell that I can't remember anything about CSS. I literally look it up every time. Like I forgot the syntax as I was looking at it. But it can be helpful to look at that stuff. It should be pretty quick. Basically you'll want to, if you Google it, search for CSS selectors, and probably any site should give you the basics of how it works. That will be enough to understand the editing and edit classes that we looked at.
Thanks, I'll do that.
Yep. Yeah, so Joe just said it's pretty straightforward once you have in your mind, at least the CSS part, once you have in your mind like how the CSS selectors work, and you can just look them up. You don't have to memorize them. And then it will probably make a lot more sense. But from the JavaScript side, it really is pretty simple. It's just like you add the editing class, and then you return the element with the edit class. The naming here is really confusing, I think, but yeah. Cool. But yeah, good question. And it looks like you're doing a good job with like really paying attention to the detail of what's happening. So that's great. Did you have any other questions?
I probably do, but I'll think on it for a second, and I think I had one other, but
okay. Well, take your time and think about your question, and I'll come back to you. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So last we have, is it Erop? I'm not sure how to say your name.
Erop, yes.
Erop. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. So did you have a question with any of the material?
I am in section 9. I kind of, well, I don't understand how we get the to do text in the view. The to do text part kind of, I know it's on the top, but I don't know how you get that there and it's actually working.
Can you share your screen so we can see the exact code you're looking at?
Sure. 1 second.
Okay.
Right here. This.
Okay. Can you command plus like maybe twice?
I'm sorry?
Can you command plus?
Oh, get the screen.
Yeah, just make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. Okay. And then Cool. So is it line 50 or 83?
Yeah, 83 and 85.
Okay.
That's what I'm stuck. I mean, yeah.
So I guess what can you kind of rephrase your question now that we're looking at the same thing?
Okay. How did we get to do text from top to actually do what's doing? I don't know if I make sense.
So let's think about what to-do list.todos is first, because the data that we're working with is we're working with different elements that are inside of to-do list.todos, right? So to-do list.todos is created in line 2, and so it's an array. And then how does the array get populated? Like how do you add
we pushing it into array.
Right, exactly. So
from here to do that push.
Exactly, right. So we start with the empty array in line 2, and then whenever you add a new to-do, which means whenever you run the add to-do method, you're gonna push a new object to the to-dos array. And then the objects have the form that you see in lines 5 and 6. It has a to-do text property, which is equal to the to-do text argument.
Argument we put it here.
Yep. And then the completed property will start as false. You might change it later with toggle completed, but when the to-dos first added, it's false. And so all of the elements in the to-dos array have this form. They have a to-do text property and a completed property. And so when you look back at line 83, so your question is how does to-do text work? Well, the to-do object, it has that same form that we just saw. It has a to-do text property and a completed property. And so here we're just accessing one of its existing properties. And you could see this more clearly. Can you hit show live?
I'm sorry? Show live. Sure.
Yeah, so hit show live. And can you add something? Whatever you want. It's literally something. Now open the console and go to sources. And client.js. Go to on the left side. Select the client.js, yeah. And scroll down to 83. And click the number 83 on the left side. Yeah, just click that. Now add something else. Or can you add another to do?
Oh, underneath?
No.
Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
Something else. Okay.
It can be anything, but make it different than the first one. It didn't. So can you go to the console and type view.display to-dos and then run it? Wait, why isn't it pausing? So go back to sources. Oh no, no, sorry, in the sources tab here. Wondering why this is not running. Can you wait? Just stay there. Don't
Okay.
move. I will go to the same URL and share my screen and try to play around with it. great/platinum.glitch.me. So you can stop sharing. I'll share my screen.
Sure.
All right. So let's see what's going on. Okay, so I just want to kind of flow through the code so you can see what's going on. And I want to go into display to-dos. So for some reason, I don't know, your code wasn't stopping, but that's fine. It's working here. So I clicked add to do, and I kind of paused in the debugger at the beginning of the add to do method. And then from here, we're going to step into display to dos, and we can take a look at exactly what's going on. So let's do that. So now we're in 75. And the thing we want to look at right now is we can look at so this is equal to an object, and it's equal to our, I guess in this case, the view object. So I guess that's good to know. But okay, so down here we're interested in, here's where we're the data that's kind of relevant to your question. So we're looking at the to-do list object here in line 78, and you're specifically interested in the to-dos array. And the to-dos array has one element at index 0 with the completed property of false and a to-do text of first. And so the way for each works, if you watch the interlude on functions inside of functions, for each is going to run a callback function, in this case, the highlighted function, and each time it runs the function, it's going to pass each element. It's going to pass a specific element as the first argument. So the first time it runs, it's going to pass in the first argument. So it will pass in like this object, and that will be equal to so if you pass this in as the first argument, then the to-do parameter will be equal to that object. And so I think if we step in, we'll see that. So here, remember, so the first time for each runs, or for each is going to run once, but when for each runs and calls the callback function, it's going to pass in each element. In this case, we only have one element, and so when the callback runs, it's going to get that first element as a to-do parameter, right? So you have to-do, I'm trying to highlight over it, and that to-do, so the to-do argument has the completed and the to-do text properties. And so that's why you can do stuff like to-do text. Erupt, does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would encourage you to, as much as you can, try to...
This is my second time. I actually finished it, as you see. I'm doing it second time. Yeah. It just, I was like, where did that come from? I mean, I know where it's coming from, but it just wasn't making any sense.
Yeah, so the specific parts that might be worth revisiting are the functions inside of functions interlude. Actually, that would be probably the main one. And then aside from that, I just encourage you to run everything through the debugger so you can see the detail of what's happening at each step.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I guess we'll come, Miriam, do you have your question ready? Your second question?
Sure. So I was wondering about the Boolean operation.
Okay.
I'm seeing two different behaviors depending on the context of where it's used. And I was just wondering.
Can you show us the two behaviors you're seeing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I set up two different scenarios here. So this is the simpler one. This is more like what I was used to with practical JavaScript.
Wait, can you share your screen?
Oh, sorry, I totally forgot to do that.
I was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, so
okay.
So I just set up a little to-do list here.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I take test.todos.0, oops, test 0.completed, it's true. So that would be the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I do the opposite, I'm typing too quickly. 0.completed, it's false. And that's the way I originally understood this operation, is that it is the opposite of the original.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when we started looking into the filter function.
Wait, hold on. So that first example is the one that makes sense to you, or does it make sense to you?
Yeah, this is what I was used to.
Okay, cool.
And then we started looking at the get active to dos method.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set it up here. I basically just added that method to the first test I set up.
Okay.
And so if I run, then it outputs the two that are false. So okay. I think it makes sense, but I would have to kind of rethink what I thought I knew about the Boolean operation. I thought this literally just always meant opposite or set it to opposite. And here it seems more like it means false. Like if this is not completed, if the completed property is false, then that counts as passing this filter test. And then,
well, yeah. So let's think about it. So I think the trickiest part of this is the naming, like get active to dos. I think that if you just named it, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. So just imagine for a second in an alternate reality that we were more explicit about the name of the method. So, for example, like what's an active to do? What does that mean? It's a false to do, right? So basically, let's just rewrite it and rename it get false to dos. Yeah. So we know that the to do we want all the to dos to have a completed property of false. Right, and so when we run the callback on those objects, we have to do.completed. So can you highlight the return portion, the part after the the part after the return keyword, or actually highlight just the part after the exclamation point, but not the semicolon. Yeah. So we want all the things that have to do completed equal to false, because that's what the method name is saying. And so all of those objects, it's gonna be false. So the opposite of false is true, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're basically, we want And then so then how does filter work?
So it runs the function. It creates a new array, and depending on whether or not each element passes the test written inside of this function, right?
And what's considered passing the tests? Can you be more specific?
It has to. This entire thing has to be true. So
Right.
it has to not be completed.
Well, it has to, the part you highlighted has to be true, right? And the only way for that to be true is if to-do.completed is false, because the opposite of false is true.
Oh, okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird. It's simple, but it is confusing because it's like the closest thing I can think of is, and I hate this when people talk to you, and especially people that academics do this a lot, and they say stuff like it's not inevitable, or it's they say like double negatives and stuff, and I'm just like my head explodes. I'm not smart enough to understand that, and this is the same thing in programming. Like people do this all the time, and it clearly is very, very confusing, not just in programming, but in just spoken natural languages as well.
Yeah, I guess this was confusing because if I just ignore the Boolean here, if I just look at to-do.completed, I don't interpret that as false or true. I just think of that as a property, and it may be true and it may be false. It just depends on which object you're looking at within the array. Right. So I think to say not, like, if I took this literally, it's like saying it's almost like saying there isn't even a completed property. Like if I think about it the way I was first interpreting it, to-do.completed isn't, I don't know, it just didn't, it's not very intuitive.
Yeah, it's not. It's like double negatives on steroids, I think.
Yeah.
Like I already have trouble with double negatives, and I honestly have a lot of trouble with stuff like this. So I literally have to just be really baby steps with it is my approach. Like
so
to me,
just testing it.
Yeah. I mean, just to be real, the baby steps I usually take to understand stuff like this, since I still struggle with it, is I just feed values through and see what happens. So like the way this code is written, the only way, like for example, the filter is going to retain the elements that where the callback returns true. So to understand what elements are going to be kept, I want to make sure that the stuff after the return is going to be true. The only way for that to happen is if to-do completed is false, right? Because the opposite of false is true. If to-do completed was true, well then if you stick the bang and not true is false, and then it'll return false. And so if you conceptually, I think it is difficult to think about it, but if you just feed values through, it becomes very obvious. And
okay, I think there's a detail I didn't catch. Filter only will include elements in the array that return true.
Return true, right?
That makes sense. I think that makes more sense now. Why that?
The other thing is, so remember that you can always get, if the bang or exclamation point, whatever you want to call it, if that's confusing to you, you can always rewrite it so you don't have it. So, I guess, can you clear the console and then hit the up arrow and we can rewrite it? So right above the return, I guess just comment that out so that we have it as a reference point, and then we'll write our code underneath. Yeah, so let's just write a new function underneath, and we'll say if, how would you do it? If to-do dot completed is equal to false, so you want a comparison to triple equals.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and then wrap the comparison in parentheses. So oftentimes I like to write the code the same way I think, because if you write the code the same way you think, it's easy to read because everyone probably thinks this way, unless you're really weird. but almost no one thinks in the bang way. So this will usually be easier to read. So if to do is completed is false, then return true. Right, just like return true. And then else return false. And it's the same thing.
Okay, and I was wondering too about how you would rewrite it with an if.
Just like that.
That's good. So would you, I mean, I guess if they do the same thing, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think to me, I think that it's important to be able to handle like when you see the commented out portion, because it is really common. So if you're not comfortable with that, you're gonna have trouble reading code. And so it's important in the sense that you need to understand it because your coworkers might be writing stuff like this. Personally, I really like the alternative because it's just so obvious. It is more code, but I think it's closer to the way people think, and then that which makes it easier to understand and easier to read. So, I mean, the only con is that it's a little bit longer, but I think, I mean, you write code once and you read it thousands of times, right? So I think that I'm okay with that trade-off. But, a lot of people have preferences and which will be different. But that's my view. So I actually prefer like really explicit kind of simple dumb code.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but you have to be prepared to however people write the code, you have to be prepared to understand it. Yeah, so I guess another technique, just to help you, because this is actually something I do a lot myself. If you see, you'll start to see things that are more confusing. So you'll see stuff like double bang, like imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see stuff like that, and it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. You're gonna see stuff like that. When you see stuff like that, one thing that can be helpful, at least something I do, is to just write the alternative. I was just like, in a world with no bang operator, what would this look like? And I write it, and then I'm like, okay, I got it, because it kind of helps me to just see, like, because if you write the alternative, then you'll understand it, right? And then you can just comment out the bang version, write in the alternative, and make sure that like it still works, and then you'll understand it. So that's a technique I honestly still use to this day, since I have never gotten comfortable with this.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not, it doesn't come easily to me, these bang operators, so.
Yeah, and honestly, when people use double negatives in English, in my head, I'll I literally like will think about it kind of the same way, where I'm like, or I'll sometimes count the number of double negatives, right? So if you have two double negatives, then it's like a reflection. It's like mirrored. It's the same thing, right? But if you have an odd number, then it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I'll count the double negatives and be like, okay, got it. Like I use like little tricks like that to understand this stuff, right? And that's something you can do too. You just count the bangs. So the opposite. So one bang will be the opposite. So if you have two completed false, then it'll return true. If you have two, it'll be the same.
Okay.
Right? If you happen to have three, then it'll be the opposite, and so on.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think I'm understanding. I think especially thinking about filter as only grabbing what's true. So you have to kind of manipulate it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and then try to create. So what you can do with filter is filter like the opposite of what you want, and try to force yourself to write it. Like for example, now you're returning everything that has false, but why not rewrite it and do the opposite, and then you can see the difference, and that can be helpful too.
And I think I was seeing the bang operator like on val. I think that happened. Yeah, like if not that. I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to verbalize it, I guess. And maybe that's not the right way of thinking about it. If there is no, I guess this was interesting because I'm used to seeing the bang operator on being applied just to a true or false statement or property. So that was interesting to see it applied to something a little more complicated.
Yeah. So here, the way I would mess around with this is think about all the things that val could, like all of the values it could have, and then like I always say, let's make a table and then just see, like notice how it changes. So once you do that, like val is a string, right? Or it should, because it's input. Is it input value? Or is it? I don't remember. It's some kind of, I think it's a string of some sort. And then, so like the only so many strings you can have. You can have like an empty string. You can have a string with stuff in it. People often test 0 because it's sometimes different. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, maybe it's saying if there's no value.
Yes. So try that. So the three things I would test: go in the console again, and just type not or bang hi. So that means hi is truthy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So hi is,
well, so then to see the Boolean value of hi, write Boolean, the capitalized, and then pass in hi. No, pass in hi like a function. Yeah. So it's true. So then do like bang string 0. So it's still
it's
false.
just like any other.
Yeah, and then do bang empty string. True, right? And then to verify this, you can do Boolean empty string.
So this is trying to find an instance where the string is empty.
Exactly, pretty much, yeah.
And then you would just destroy the event.
You wouldn't destroy the event, but you would run the destroy method.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. Okay, I think I understand. I'll work on that a little more.
Okay, cool, awesome. All right. Well, wait. Oh, you can stop sharing. All right. Well, looks like we've gone through all the questions. Does anyone have a second question they'd like to ask? And I can come back to you. Or I guess Joe and Jason might have a first question. No. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do a quick sweep and look at the YouTube and Facebook, see if anyone left a comment or anything, and then I'll just end it here. So if this is your first time watching, we do have like kind of a casual discussion after the broadcast ends, and so if you want to join us for that, it's pretty informal and it's more random, fewer technical questions. So if you want to join us for that, you're welcome to. But all you have to do is call into the Hangout, and we'll probably stick around for, I don't know, I'll be here for at least 20 minutes or so, and then I'll head out. But yeah, it looks like there's not really anything going on. So I'm going to end the broadcast. Join us for the discussion if you want to. If not, then thank you for watching, and hope this was helpful. I know the beginning was a little bit slow, and part of it was my fault. I think I started like 2 or 3 minutes late. But hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or feedback for me, you can always email me. My email address is gordon@watchandcode.com. All right. Thanks, everyone, and hope to see you next week.